Gene lost 52 pounds from 184 down to the mid 120s. He did that using a pattern similar to what many of us have used, starting off a couple of years ago with more of a plant-based diet and then morphing more into a low-carb diet with some intermittent fasting. I'll let Gene tell you about that. But before I do, I'll also mention he's had some other challenges that he's dealing with successfully. One is obstructive sleep apnea. Um, the weight loss has had a huge impact on insulin resistance for Gene. He's had some thyroid issues as well. But again, without me getting too detailed, let's let Gene tell his story. This is the full interview, by the way.
The real purpose here is to tell a couple of critical stories. You lost 52, 54 pounds, depending on what day you take your weight. And that's a journey. That's a process. That's a story that a lot of viewers on this channel would be very interested in hearing. So you want to take it from there?
Sure. First of all, it's good to have an opportunity to talk to you. And we've been friends for several years now. I am a patient of PrevMed, and it was March the 2nd of 2017. I had triple bypass surgery. Prior to that, I guess I don't know what my weight was on the day of the surgery, but leading up to that, I probably weighed around 182, 183. And that was, for me, for a person my size with my frame, was way too heavy. And so, yeah, I have lost a little over 50 pounds, 52, 53, and I weigh 128 pounds now. But that did not happen overnight. I'm coming up on, I guess, in a 3 weeks or so, 3 weeks, it'll be a 2-year anniversary of that heart surgery. So right after that, you and I connected. I connected with you as a patient, and I just decided I'm going to get serious about this. I'm going to do what I need to do to, not only make the changes, because I think that was the key. The medicine helps, but it's really a lifestyle thing for me. So making those changes was really fundamental, not only to losing the weight, but to getting those values on the blood work and everything else, in line. I think I didn't understand forward. I think the thing that I would, the aha moment, it may have been when I was coming to your office for a consultation, or we were going to talk, and you mentioned that before we started, you mentioned that I was insulin resistant. And I'd heard that before, but it sounded so benign. It sounded like, so, okay, big deal. It doesn't sound like you have cancer, or you have diabetes, or you have, some awful malady. It's insulin resistant, right? And I thought, well, maybe that's that little bit of time you have out there before you become a type 2 diabetic. And I don't know that it's all that bad, until I decided then to learn more about what that meant. And then I realized that this long-term period of being insulin resistant, of not being judicious about what I was eating primarily, and how much I was moving and how I was moving, resulted in a lot of years of just these cumulative insults to the inside of my arteries. And that long period of time, those little micro damages, those micro insults, add up. And what happened was I pretty much created a lot of arterial disease, particularly in the arteries in my heart, and they had to be repaired. So, yeah, it was a wake-up call, and then I learned more about what insulin resistance is and what we can do about it, and so I made a lot of changes.
So, Gene, I appreciate you focusing on that that snake that's right next to your foot that's called insulin resistance, and people just don't recognize it. If there's one thing from a legacy perspective or one purpose for this channel, is to get people to realize that it's not even diabetes. It's really insulin resistance that does the vast majority of damage on a population basis, because most of us never really get to the extent of full-blown diabetes. Meanwhile, it's those 2, 3, 4 decades worth of insulin resistance. In other words, times when our blood sugar is getting over 140, 160, 180, and we're just 2, 3, 4, 10, 12 hours a day. Meanwhile, our insulin's climbing, and both of those are causing inflammation in our arteries. And it really only damages parts of your body where you have arteries. Yeah. So that means everything. It's the number one cause of eye damage, brain damage, whether you're talking about stroke or dementia, obviously heart attack, kidney damage, all of these things. And again, it's interesting, docs, from a standard perspective, docs just tend to expect and see that, and they tend to not really pull the andon, pull the fire alarm and let the patient know this is where you're getting damage. And you experienced that.
Well, I did. In fact, just recently, I went in for an annual physical. This was really an eye-opener in the sense that I requested that one of the tests that we run, for this physical would be an OGTT, that oral glucose tolerance test, that 2-hour uptake measure, because that was I believe, Ford, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was maybe the diagnostic test that precipitated your comments to me about the problem I have. And my physician, who's a fine fella, but I don't think really plugged into what you're talking about. This, I think there's a normalcy bias, right? And the normalcy is, well, you're getting older, and so what?
Right.
And yeah, that happens when you age. And your approach to it was a lot different. His calculus involved looking at my A1C levels. And if they were fine, I'm fine. And there would be no need for metformin or some of the other things that, are part of managing an insulin resistant, what happens when you flip into that, right? And how you dial it back. And so for the life of me, I could not get him to order the test, and I tried to I said, look, I'm the customer, right? Not so much. Anyhow, so for me, that was a real wake-up call, and that was the information that precipitated my desire to really make some changes, not some temporary ones, but some long-term ones. And so, I've been at this weight I am now, which is about 128 pounds, between 128 and 130. I've been here for, a year and a half, a little over a year. And so I lost that weight, kind of slowly over time. And, there's not a lot of magic here. There's just not. I mean, I think besides the diet changes and really seeing sugar as the enemy. I mean, just really, sugar in any form. I mean, maybe unless you're getting it from some fruit or something, is working against you in a lot of ways, particularly the way I used to consume it, which was with Dr. Peppers and whatever I felt like eating. And so that, and I think what really moved the needle too was just the exercise. And I'm not out there running half marathons. I'm not, I walk a lot. I run a little, and I do some resistance work. I do some work with weights. I have a Stairmaster. I get on it very regularly. So, those are just some changes I made. And you prescribed a medication called metformin. I take it twice a day. I think if you're, again, I'm not a medical person, but I'm surprised they don't put it in the drinking water, actually. I mean,
well, there's a proposal to do something very similar. It's called the TAME study, targeting aging with metformin.
Really?
Yeah, it's a well-known, very good researcher called Nir Barzilai. He's up at Columbia in New York. Okay. And basically what he's saying is he'd like to take everybody 65 and older and just everybody, put them on metformin. And it has to do with a lot of what you're talking about. It also has to do with some other biomarkers associated with aging.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I kind of learned from this is maybe a way to look at insulin resistance is like a rubber band that's been stretched out and stretched out and stretched out. Instead of being tight and firm and come back to its original place, it just gets sloppy and it just loses its elasticity. I think our arteries, instead of being less elastic, they just get thicker, and they get a lot more calcium and other deposits that are problematic and create those blockages. So yeah, there's if you'd like I said, 2 years ago, a diagnosis of being insulin resistant would have been, I would not have had the ability to understand how serious that is. Today, it's a lot different, and I really understand it. And I'm doing something about it, so we'll see.
There's two conversations that I want to have with you here. One of them has to do with that progression of diet. You started at one point on a plant-based, and then you got a lot more focused on getting the carbs out. I wanted to hear a little bit more about that. Before we do, though, I'd just like to make a comment about body habitus. You remember what we were talking about just earlier before this interview. You were not heavy, certainly not obese, and you don't look incredibly skinny to me now. So it's just that Americans have a very different view of body habitus, and I just wanted to share this one experience. I've done several videos talking about my experiences helping run Medicare Advantage programs, and it's a typical finding where you'll see the docs of the Vietnamese patients end up doing the greatest. And it's like, even if they do any of the work they're supposed to do or not, and it's like, how does that happen? And it's crystal clear. The Vietnamese their populations are not getting diabetes, so they're not getting eye damage, they're not getting kidney damage, they're not getting strokes and heart attacks, and they're not getting dementia. We in America have gotten used to, we think if somebody's below a BMI of 25, they're cachectic, they're skinny, they're looking sick. Whereas you really need to be 20 to 22 is much healthier, and that's probably about where you are now.
Yeah, I probably a little less than that now, but I think prior to March of 17, I was, a little portly, but not. I was not obese. I was certainly not morbidly obese. I was just I had just a gut, I mean, just what guys get when they get north of 50, right? And
Yep.
but it was not, I was still not that big a guy. I mean, statue wise, so I did not look like I was carrying a lot of weight. But I mean, the truth is, my pant size has gone from, a really snug 36 to about a 31 now, a 30 in some pants. So, so
That'll
where
do it.
was all that? Where was all that? I think there's just this marbling that happens, you just have fat you don't know you have, and it's pretty well distributed. And then when you make these changes to not only your diet, but how you move and how often you move and when you move, and um, that starts to melt away, and then there's just more muscle there than there was fat, and then you weigh a lot less. At least that's been my experience. Also, Ford, I stay really well hydrated. I drink a lot of water. Um, and I start off in the morning by drinking, at least 16 ounces of water. Um, I try to exercise every morning before I do anything else. I mean, to get the motor kind of turned up, just to get I think that may create a phenomenon where the burn is a little higher during the day. At least that's
Yeah.
what I believe to be my experience. And then your question was, I think, kind of moving from plant-based to being less focused on or not running away from certain fats. I did read, I believe it's Dr. Joe Mercola,
Fat for
a
fuel.
book Fat for Fuel. It's a friendly lay read, although it's fairly technical. But I became less concerned about the fats that I was consuming, particularly most of the animal fat that I eat now really does come from salmon or chicken. I have an occasional fillet, um, and I will a few times a year crush a cheeseburger, but it's just kind of rare. More often than not, though, I really have. I think the one thing I've avoided is a lot of processed food, and places where you get refined sugars. I'm just really aware that if I'm opening a package, if I'm opening whatever I'm having done screw, or I can read the label on, it's probably processed. And I just need to at least be mindful of what I'm doing and what it is, And less is more with that. The less ingredients, the better. At least that's my belief, and something I try to stick to. So yeah, I did. I started out this journey thinking I just needed to be a full-blown vegetarian. That's what I would do, and I did lose a lot of weight those first 4 months, but I wasn't feeling good. I'm gonna be honest with you. I guess I'd spent 65 years getting protein from animal sources, and to all of a sudden think I was going to get that out of plants. It didn't work as well for me. And so when I added back some leaner protein in the form of fish and chicken, it worked out pretty well.
I had a similar experience, both with pant size and age and diet. When I tended to I was plant-based for 30 something years. Until 3 or 4 years ago, I went more of a low carb route and still didn't eat a lot of meat, but didn't avoid it as much as I had in the past. I had had a size 33 waist my whole life, never could get below that. Dropped down to 32, then about 31 in my early 60s again, and ended up not having all of this, bad hunger, hanger kind of stuff, and feeling bad, that kind of things that you get when you got carbs in your diet. So it made a big difference for me as well. You made a similar progression to a lot of us. You started off plant-based, then as the science became a little bit clearer about carbs versus oils and fats, you took a little bit of a turn, started dropping those carbs, and then you went into some intermittent fasting. Describe that a little bit.
Oh yeah. Well, I do this every day. Regarding the fats, I olive oil and avocados. I eat probably at least a half to a whole avocado every day. And olive oil is pretty much a staple. But I think the thing that's really moved the needle for me, well, there have been a lot of things I've already mentioned, but I eat 2 to 2.5 meals a day, but I fast for at least a minimum of like 14 hours every day, usually sometimes 18. I'll eat in about a 6-hour window or a 7-hour window. I don't eat late at night. I don't snack late at night. And I do it every day. I just have my first meal around noon or 1 o'clock. And I have my last meal, around 7, usually never later than 8. And so in that window, I just don't eat, and I drink a lot of water. And I feel fine. I mean, I feel really good. I don't, being the size I am now, I'm a lot more nimble and faster. I feel better, but moving to that intermittent fast regimen, at first it sounded pretty draconian. You can't do that. That's impossible. You're supposed to get up and eat a lot when you wake up, right? And that's just not true. And your body adapts to it. And I'm not so hyper focused on the calories I take in when I do eat, because I'm eating 2 meals a day, but I have that, I'm exercising, but I'm also consistently, and that consistent for me means every day. I may, once a month not get that 14 or 18 hours in, but it's rare. By consistently doing that, I've consistently been able to manage my weight without a lot of effort. That's just the truth.
That is fantastic. Say that again.
What's that?
That you've been able to keep your weight where you want to be without a lot of effort.
Yeah, it has not been. And once you get, and you know what, it's like anything you do. Once it becomes a habit, it's a habit. It's not a headache. And so that first few weeks of just, moving into this new regimen takes a little practice or a little determination. But after that, it's just a lifestyle. It's not a big deal. And and here's another thing I do and there are people that argue for and against this, but I tell you, every single morning I weigh myself. I get on the scales. And in business we used to say, what gets measured gets done.
Yeah.
And we had another one too that employees respect what you inspect, not what you expect.
Yeah.
And but the truth is, what gets measured gets done. And the fact that I every morning, I think I sent you a a photograph of my scales. Anyhow, so yeah, I do that, and every day I know where I am. I know where I'm starting the day. And there you go. That was a few weeks back, but yeah. So that's as low as I've ever been, and as high as I go now is 130. And the median is a pretty comfortable 128, 129 every day.
That's great, Gene. So what you're doing now is like a low carb, what a lot of people would call intermittent fast on a 16/8 24-hour pattern.
That is correct. Yeah.
Have you done any fasting mimicking like Prolon, Volta Longo, or any prolonged water fasting, 2 or 3 days, anything like either one of those?
I have not.
Okay. Just wanted to get, I know you haven't, I just wanted to get that out there for the interview. This has been a wonderful story, Gene. There are other things that you can think of that we need to cover?
It may come to me later, but I do think that because our culture or our medical establishment or whatever has really never highlighted the dilemma or the problem with being insulin resistance with all of these chronic maladies that happen, particularly as we age, from cognitive impairment to heart health issues to as you mentioned, obviously diabetes, your eyesight, everything else. It's my belief that the genesis of that is that whatever it is that starts happening in your 30s or 40s, and just having that slow burn inside your arteries, that, like you said, you don't know your own fire until it's a 5-alarm fire, and then it's a real problem.
Yep.
So
I, to wrap it up, here's several different stories and points that I get out of this to help others summarize it. One is that insulin resistance is a big, big problem. And it's like we're boiling ourselves like a frog and we don't know it. And it's wiping out our body. Whereas the current standards of medicine is to expect that and consider, well, that's just aging. That may have something to do with the same expectation that we're going to have a heart attack or stroke and die or dementia in our 60s and 70s. Doesn't need to happen.
Correct.
The second one is the progression of your diet. Started out plant-based, then got a lot more focus on low carbs, and then added this 18-6 intermittent fasting program.
That's correct.
The third thing I got out of this was you can't supplement your way and you can't medicate your way out of a healthy lifestyle.
That's correct.
Given
There's no magic bullet.
No, that's not a magic bullet. Given your history, I think the surgery that you had did help. Not in terms of the weight loss, but it helped with some stuff that was going on with your arteries. I do think that the metformin helped a little bit in terms of your overall weight loss and some of your biomarkers. Speaking of biomarkers, we're going to get your inflammation panel and a few other things and maybe do a quick video on those. But it wasn't the surgery. The surgery and the metformin both together have no impact like a 52-pound weight loss. Whole different ballgame.
Yeah, you can really move the needle without that size that you're carrying around. And I mean, if you want to see how dramatic that is, go pick up 2 25-pound dumbbells.
Yeah,
that is pretty stunning, actually.
It really.
I do that, and
And that was a 28. I just did some math while you were talking a minute ago, and that was a 28% loss of body mass.
That's wild. I hadn't done that. I have not.
You lost almost a third of your body.
A third of my body, yeah. Well,
You're carrying around an extra half of gene
it's
over
there's
what
a
you are
lot.
now.
Well,
No
it's
wonder you were tired and having some problems.
well, I feel a lot better now. I will tell you one of the things too, and you know, we can get into this on another time, but you know, understanding that how your thyroid comes into some of this, and I've had some issues with that. That you know, once I got remedied, really helped the fatigue level and all that as well. But that's probably for another day. But that and really understanding sleep.
Oh yeah.
How critical sleep has been for me to get really good restorative healthy sleep every night and make it that a family value. I mean, that sounds weird, but I'm just saying it's just you got to really, when you start making these changes and you do some things with your diet and you start having some success, then you realize there's more. And for me, it's 3 words: eat, move, sleep, right?
Yeah.
I'm really careful about how I eat. I make sure I move, that I move a lot. And like I said earlier, I don't necessarily run, but I'm active. I walk a lot and I get on the Stairmaster or the treadmill. And sleep. I mean, you know, I was diagnosed with obstructive sleep apnea, and I just didn't know how much of that fatigue and really how much of the heart disease is actually probably had to do with, you know, poor sleep, poor quality sleep. I just didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. Okay.
Gene, we do have to talk again and do another video or two, because I'm getting ready to start a sleep apnea series. In addition, I've done several series on sleep itself. So yeah, and thyroid stuff. We just started some stuff on thyroid as well. So you got a rich story. I appreciate you sharing it. And
well, thank you. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you, Gene.
I appreciate all you've done to help me find this pathway, to help me understand the, you know, how serious this all is, and also help me understand, you know, here's the pathway, here's the way out, you know, here's what you can do, and me getting enough serious about, you know, some of those conversations we've had and making some lifestyle changes.
You could not have thanked me any better than you have with that, with the changes you've made.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Gene. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.